Champions Cup are not the only semi-finals we have this weekend. My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. Okay, so the plan for this evening was to, first of all, if teams are out, to do semi-finals previews, individuals for each of the Champions Cup semi-finals, but teams aren't out. And then the next thing then was if I had time to do a preview of the Challenge Cup semi-finals. So I had time because there were no teams out for the Champions Cup, but then I recorded the whole thing, and I've just this second, like about 2 minutes ago, been going through my edit and realized there's horrible distortion on the audio, so I can't use that. Thrown that out, and now I'm re-recording now. So I'm probably going to miss a lot of stuff that I had queued up for the last time, but we'll see how we go on it. Hopefully it's worth watching anyway. So we're going to start with the lineup. So first of all, we have the first semi-finals on Saturday, 4th of May. This is at 12:30 kickoff, and it's at the Twickenham Stoop. It's Hollywood Bet Sharks versus ASM Clermont Auvergne. So it's basically Sharks versus Clermont. But two decent teams here. Sharks, they're laden with talent in that team, and they kind of remind me a little bit of Racing 92 in that, like, there's so much talent in the team, but somehow they never seem to consistently be better than the sum of their parts. Still some fantastic players in there, and they do put in some fantastic performances, but maybe not as consistently as you would like. But maybe this is their chance now to get themselves into a final and lift some silverware and kind of get that, reach the potential that we know that they have, and kind of get rid of those kind of perceptions of them as well, that they kind of under deliver. And then you got Clermont, who honestly probably my favorite French team, and the reason for that is because they take Europe seriously every year. They don't send over second teams, etc. And there are very few French teams who do that consistently year on year on year. Like you have Toulouse, who are undisputed kings of Europe, most successful team in the history of European rugby competitions. 5 times Champions Cup champions, reached more semi-finals than you've had hot dinners, and they always take it seriously, and they built their legacy on that. But they're able to compete there and also compete in the top 14 as well. And a lot of other teams struggle with that, and therefore they kind of they compete in Europe in bursts. Like thinking of teams like Toulon, who were very strong for a few years and then dropped off again, right? But Clermont they've not always been the strongest team, but they've always given their all in every game. They don't send over second teams and stuff like that. They always feel like they have a chance, and they give it more priority compared to the top 14 than a lot of other teams as well. And that's why I really like them, and that's why I kind of disappointed on their behalf that they haven't lifted. They never lifted the Champions Cup when they came so close in so many years. But again, this is a chance for them to potentially do well in Europe and get themselves a trophy as well. So I'm going to have a look first of all at kind of where the teams are at the minute domestically. So the Sharks at the moment, they're in 13th place in the URC. I think they're on 23. Yeah, they're on 23 points, and they've got Cardiff above them at 12 on 25. So the Sharks slowly climb their way off the bottom of the table and work their way up, and discovered a little bit of form recently. Still not like blowing teams away or anything like that, but certainly a lot better than they were at the start of the season when they're literally rock bottom of the URC. So that's a good place for them to be in terms of at least form coming into this. And Clermont, not doing brilliantly themselves in the top 14. They're currently down in 10th place, and realistically, I think in France, in the top eight, or no, sorry, the top six go into the playoffs, right? I think you have like a mini playoff between third to sixth or wherever, and then you have like a the rest of the playoffs, then your semi-final and final from there. So they've no real chance of getting there. Same with the Sharks, no real chance of qualifying for the playoffs, the top eight in the URC. So for both teams, this is their chance really to end their season on a high and potentially make a final, and beyond that, maybe even lift the trophy. And for either team, that would be a sweet, sweet thing, I feel. Sharks again, maybe in terms of how the South African teams have done in the URC since they joined, not doing as well as the Stormers who've won it, the Bulls, who've come close to winning it themselves. Sharks have made the playoffs, but haven't really gone much beyond that. So a real chance for them now in a semi-final to stand up and deliver, as it were. So I think both of these teams are really going to go for this one. We've got as well recent form. The Sharks have just beaten the Scarlets, right? Yeah, they just beat the Scarlets. It was like 32 points to 28 or 27, something like that, over in Wales as well. So, decent win for them on the road, and a good build up to this one as well, because although they're billed as the home side, it's at the Twickenham Stoop, so it's in England. At least they don't have that far to travel in terms of, going from Wales down to London, and probably a better preparation week than they would have had otherwise if they had to travel up from South Africa. We saw what the Bulls did when they had to do that in their quarterfinal of the Champions Cup. So the Sharks, they travel with a strong squad, and they're going to have that strong squad available to them in this one. Like if we just look at the starting lineup that they had against the Scarlets, just show you what type of talent is in this team. We got Oxenche, then Mbata and Vincent Koch in the front row. Second row, Eben Etzebeth and Emil van Heerden. Back row, then Buthelezi, Labouchage and Chituga. Vincent Chituga is probably one of my favorite South African players that you don't see running around in the Springboks. I think he's a fantastic player. Onto the backs then, they had Grant Williams. That guy is just electric. His pace is amazing. Then we have Masuku at 10. They have Mapimpi on the wing. He's going to want to, show that, he's still got it as well, because, you got the likes of Aronsa in brilliant form at the moment, and Mapimpi is going to want to make sure that he's involved in those tests against Ireland in the summer. You got Ethan Hooker there at 12, Lekanuam at 13. His tip-on pass for the first of Werner Koch's hat-tricks in that game was just sublime. Like, it was one of those ones where he barely touched the ball, but he managed to move it on with such pace that's what opened the space up for them out wide. Then you got Werner Koch, who scored a hat trick in that game, and then you have Fassi there at full back as well. So some real amazing talent there. And then they've got the likes of Grobler, Hendrickse, Chamberlain, Benter on the bench as well. Van Buren's there, Makunu and Jacobs as well. So really strong team that they that they had against Scarlets, and we're going to see similar strength as well in this game too. As I said, Sharks coming in on this into this on the back of a win, 32-27 against the Scarlets in the Parky Scarlets, but also Clermont coming in on the back of a win as well. Dave, as I said, they're down in 10th place in the top 14, but they still managed to very comfortably beat Stade Francais, who were top of the top 14, 41 points to 18. So both teams must be coming in on the high after those games. And then, despite as well their their lowly league positions in the domestic leagues, they've also been doing, their knockout play has been pretty good in this competition as well. If we go back and look, first of all, at their round of 16, and then we're going to look at their quarterfinals as well. Both teams, did fairly well there. Like, you got Clermont, 27 points to 22 against the Cheetahs. Cheetahs, an invitational side from South Africa. I'd love to see them in the URC. I'd love to see more South African teams in the URC, because the ones that are there add so much. But I realize you can't make the league too big. I'd love, personally, I'd love to see, rather than an 18-game regular season, like a 30-game regular season. But I know that would be asking too much of the players, so we got to look out for them. But yeah, Clermont, they were made to work for that, but they still came through to beat the Cheetahs, because Cheetahs have been, decent. They've been an invitational side for the last 2 seasons, and they haven't, embarrassed themselves in this competition either. So even though they're not in the URC, they're still a decent team that had to be beaten. Benetton, we'll come on to Benetton in a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself here. The Sharks, their round of 16. So Sharks just beat Zebre very handily at Kings Park, 47 points to 3. No real challenge from Zebre there, and it was kind of, I think it was around the time when we saw that the Sharks were beginning to click and beginning to find that form that they've come into now, and it was one of the early signs that they were going to improve on the run in. Onto then the quarterfinals. So Clermont, 53 points to 14 against Ulster. A really good win for them. Ulster, didn't they beat Montpellier in the previous round away from home, and actually won the game fairly handily in the end? Yes, they were playing against 14 men, but it was a very good performance from an Ulster team that had been floundering at that stage, but just couldn't go into the next round, and Clermont really took advantage of that, and just kept piling on the points as well to make sure that there was no comeback in that game for Ulster. So brilliant from them. Then the Sharks, they had a tougher affair themselves, 36 points to 30 against Edinburgh, again at Kings Park. Edinburgh probably would have fancied themselves coming in there, because there was definitely, of the two teams, in much the better form coming into that in terms of their league position and just that consistency of performance as well. But the Sharks stepped it up in that one. Edinburgh really made them again work for that win. It was a bit kind of back and forth through the game, but the Sharks come out on top in the end and deserved the win and that berth in the semi-final. So that's kind of where the teams are now. So how do I think it's going to go in terms of the game itself? Well, I think it's going to be probably a fairly high score. I'm expecting this semi-final to be the highest scoring, or higher scoring. There's only two higher scoring of the two semi-finals, and I think that the Sharks are going to come out on the top in that one. Twickenham Stoop is not home advantage for them, but they will have, there's going to be a lot of Saffers in London that are going to be there cheering them on. So it will feel somewhat like a home game for them. And I think as well, the fact that they should have had decent preparation coming from Wales. They don't have the travel that you normally associate with, you know, the South African teams and knockouts. So there's a lot of kind of positives for them out of that, and I think as well that just the fact that it's in a neutral ground, takes away a lot of what Clermont would have had if they were playing at home. I think if they were at home, I think they'd be odds-on favourites for the game. But for me, I think Sharks are probably going to shade it, but it's probably going to be of the two. Certainly, if you like tries, it's going to be the more exciting of the two. I think there's going to be plenty of scores in that one. So on to the second semi-final, which is also on Saturday, 4th of May. This is a 3 o'clock kick-off at Kingsholm, and it's Gloucester versus Benetton. So Gloucester, they're at the moment 9th place in the Premiership, and they are there's only Newcastle below them. I think Newcastle only have 5 or 7 points or something. Gloucester have maybe 27, something like that. But then they're well adrift of Leicester, who are in 8th place. I think they're 13 points behind Leicester. So in terms of, for them, kind of similar to Clermont and the Sharks, and that, this is their kind of end of season for them, that they've nothing to play for in the league. But so this is a potential to make a final and to lift some silverware. And then Benetton are the only team actually in these semi-finals that are actually fighting on both fronts. They're 8th place at the moment in the URC. They have kind of bounced up and down. They were second at one point in the URC. They also slipped out of the playoff places. And kind of climb their way back in there, but now that they're very vulnerable there in 8th place, and if you've seen my updates on the URC, you know how tight that table is. There's a couple of points separating 5 teams or something in and around them. So they got, I think, 3 teams on the same amount of points. One team 1 point ahead of them, and one team 1 point behind them as well. And then they've got the likes of the Lions and Ospreys just behind them again, maybe 3 or 4 points back, looking to kind of knock them out of there. So Benetton, the only team that have to worry really about fighting on 2 fronts, and that could be a bit of a strain for them, I think. In terms of this, they are in really good form. That again, the last game was in Ulster, so not that far to travel. To get over to Gloucester for this one, and it was a decent performance against Ulster. It wasn't a win. They lost last time out. Well, Gloucester beat who did Gloucester beat? Was it Exeter or somebody? Let me just double check. Can't remember who. No, sorry, Gloucester. They didn't beat Exeter. They actually got well beaten by Exeter, 38 points to 17. So both of these teams, in contrast, the first semi-final, 2 teams coming in on the back of wins, these 2 teams coming in on the back of defeats. But I think that Benetton's was certainly closer, and it was a decent performance by Benetton as well. Menoncello in that game, he was exceptional. He 6 Nations player of the tournament, and he's just continued that form. There was one where he just put on a bit of footwork that just bamboozled one of the Ulster players and managed to get them kind of on the outside then and create that little bit of space. He gives off the pass then and they're over for a try. The guy is just amazing. But there's lots of talent on the Benetton team as well. And, obviously because I watch a lot of URC, I'm more familiar with the Sharks team and the Benetton team compared to, I don't watch any Premiership, I don't watch any top 14. So the only kind of frame of reference I have for Clermont or Gloucester is how they performed in this competition. So talking about that, we're going to have a look at how these teams did in the round of 16 and the quarterfinals. So first of all, Gloucester in round of 16, they a decent win against Castres Olympique. 30 points to 25, made to win, to work for the win, but home advantage helped them out there, and that's kind of a bit of a theme for them. But that's why if you do well in the pool stages and you can get that home game, riding it through all the way to the final, then I say go for it. You've earned that right. You've earned that advantage as well. So, decent win for them there. Then for Benetton had to play the Lions, 27 points to 17. At the Stadio Moningo again, home advantage, just giving that little bit of an edge, and I had a little bit too much for the Lions on the day as well. Into the quarterfinals then. So it was Gloucester 23, Ospreys 13. I actually covered this one on the channel, watched the game live, and then did a review of the game. I thought Gloucester controlled the game superbly well, and they kind of responded to what Ospreys threw at them as well. Ospreys went into that one on a real high. It's great, as an aside, it's great to see a Welsh team being competitive in the URC and making the quarterfinals of a European competition as well. We want to see more of that. We want to see the Welsh teams rising up as well. But Gloucester on the day were certainly the better of the two teams and deserved their semi-final spot. The Sharks then, they had probably a tougher affair at Kings Park, 36 points to 30 against Edinburgh. Edinburgh really made them work for it and had a real go, but the Sharks just had just that little bit extra again, just being able to kind of keep themselves ahead at crucial times, and were able to see out the game there. So a decent win for them, to set up this semi-final too. And sorry, I've done it again. It's Benetton I was supposed to be looking at. How do I keep doing this? Okay, so Benetton, they played the Lions in the round of 16, but they played Connacht. Sorry, they played Connacht in the quarterfinals. So it's 39 points to 24 to them, and they're playing a Connacht team who, they played POW, and they, did really well. That was such a roller coaster of a game, up and down all the time. Looked like Connacht were out, and then suddenly they're winning right at the end. But then came to this one, and Benetton just had too much of them. And it felt like it all through the game that whatever Connacht threw at them, Benetton felt like they could outscore them. And I think that's kind of the contrast between these two teams. Like Gloucester, kind of controlled the game against Ospreys, whereas Benetton felt like it didn't, it felt like they were comfortable with Connacht coming and attacking them, that they felt their defence was going to come out on top in terms of just denying Connacht too many scores, and also that their attack would be superior on the day as well, and that they'd be able to top whatever score that Connacht got, and that's the way it was. And just I will say about mixing the quarterfinals up there with the Sharks instead of Benetton, that my excuse is I already recorded this, and the first one was definitely better. How about that? Apart from the audio. Okay, so, but then, that's how the two teams come in on this. As I said, Gloucester, more of a control team than Benetton maybe. But Benetton, I feel like they play in such a way that, you do have that kind of attacking spirit in the team, but they're certainly more pragmatic as well. They have a decent, really good kicking game. They don't mind going to their forwards when they need to, and they play in the right areas of the pitch. And they also take their 3 points when it makes sense to do that as well. They will go to the corner looking for tries, but if it's a tight game and it looks like 3 points are potentially could win it, they will kick a goal. I think that's a real asset for for any team in knockout rugby. But Gloucester are the same. Gloucester don't mind, scoring just a couple of tries and then filling the rest of the score out with penalties as well. So it means that this could be a tight one, with with like a penalty or a try or something in between it, basically one score. And I think it's going to be about whether Benetton can get that attack going, especially their midfield, getting them into the game. If they can do that, it'll mean that Gloucester are going to have to produce more than just that controlling performance that we saw against Ospreys. I think Gloucester will want to keep Benetton to limit them to kind of somewhere in the teens to the early 20s, and maybe score kind of mid 20s to 30s themselves to win the game. Whereas I feel like Benetton will be looking to try and get into the 30s and just make it harder for Gloucester to run up the score that they need to win. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a real arm wrestle between them there. And my head says Gloucester are going to win, but as I said on the other video as well, my heart is with Benetton. They're a URC team, so I'm going to back them. And I don't worry, I won't be claiming that, oh yeah, I said Gloucester were going to win. No, I'm saying Benetton are going to win, even though my head is basically telling me that that's not true. That's who I'm backing. So of the two semi-finals, I'm going for the two URC teams, Sharks to win against Clermont, and then Benetton to upset Gloucester, and then hopefully have an all URC final. But of these teams, whoever makes the final, I think is still going to be a cracking final. Looking at the four teams involved there, I think each one of them will add something to a final. So whatever happens, I won't be too disappointed if it's a Clermont Gloucester final. I think that's still going to be a decent spectacle to watch, and I certainly will be making sure that I at least get to watch the final, because I unfortunately won't get to watch the semi-finals because I'm going to be working while they're both on, and we've got Champions Cup. I'm basically on 10 days in a row work until I'm off next weekend. And yeah, I'm going to be covering the Champions Cup games. I won't honestly have the time to watch either of these games back in full. And if you've watched my my channel for a while, you know that I always make the commitment that if I'm going to do a review of a game, it's based on watching either the game completely live, or if I can't do that, watching it as live and watching it in full. I never do reviews based on just highlights. I will do roundups based on highlights because you can't watch every single game, and that's probably what I will do. There will be a roundup probably on Monday or Tuesday of these games. We've also got coming previews, like individual previews for the Champions Cup, each of those games. We got reviews of each of those games, and we got a roundup of those semi-finals and a separate one for these semi-finals coming up. So plenty more rugby coming your way from me. What I would say is, this weekend, whoever you're cheering for, or some people are probably going to be cheering against teams at this stage, but whoever you're supporting, I just hope you enjoy your rugby.